Hi, everyone, and welcome to our discussion on an organization's components within from a supply chain or operations management perspective. So if I share my screen here, we will hear these different components sometimes referred to different nodes of the supply chain, also as different business partners within the supply chain, and we'll also hear the term upstream and downstream from a supply chain perspective. Now, the way in which I have people remember whether product, information, or capital are moving upstream or downstream is by just thinking of a faucet in that when you turn on the faucet, the water runs down. Okay, so if we look at it from a supply chain and operations management perspective, we are going to be sending products downstream. Okay, so if we look at the different components of an organization supply chain, we're going to begin with the suppliers. So the suppliers being the organizations which supply the raw materials to a manufacturer. Okay, so with the and we will be referring to the pandemic of 2020 often in this class, in that that is something that we were all impacted by, and that's something that we can all relate to from a supply chain perspective. So if we look back on the shortage of toilet paper, right, and we have Procter and Gamble manufacturing toilet tissue. So the suppliers of Procter and Gamble will be the pulp manufacturer, pulp supplier. So those manufacturers that either provide Procter and Gamble with that pulp and what that goes into the manufacturing that produces a toilet paper, we could review that component of the supply chain as a supplier. Okay. Now, if we talk about Procter and Gamble, they could be the manufacturers of the toilet paper. Okay. So once Procter and Gamble receives those raw materials, that raw pulp, paper pulp, then they're actually going to manufacture the toilet paper. Right. And you have different processes, which we'll talk about throughout this course once we talk about the process layout and the process design. So we have Procter and Gamble that manufactures the toilet tissue. Once Procter and Gamble manufactures the tissue, then they're going to send it to distributors around the world. Okay, think Amazon. So Procter and Gamble will send toilet tissue to the hundreds of Amazon distribution centers around the world. It's going to send it to the dozens of Walmart distribution centers around the world. And then once the Walmart DCs and the Amazon DCs receive those products, they stock those products. And then once they receive that demand, in Walmart's case, from those individual stores, so from those individual Walmart retailers, then the Walmart distribution centers would send those pallets of toilet tissue to those Walmarts, right, around your town. Once the toilet paper arrived at Walmart, then the consumers would go into Walmart and purchase it. So that is a high level overview of the components of a supply chain. And you can see in that particular scenario, we have the flow of products going downstream. So starting at the paper pulp supplier all the way to the consumer, which is you. So once you walk into Walmart, purchase the toilet paper, then you are at the end of that particular flow, that particular process. Now you can see down here where we have the flow of products moving both upstream and downstream. We have the flow of information moving both upstream and downstream. And we also have the flow of funds moving both upstream and downstream. And we get that within those three particular functions where traditionally we think that the products move downstream, we think that the information flows upstream, and we think that the funds move upstream. But it goes both upstream and downstream. And if we provide those products, so we'll also talk about our circular supply chains, a circular economy, and that's where we talk about the recycling of products. Okay, so if we look at certain industries such as automotive, the automotive industry, right? So in your car, once your battery goes dead, you know, you may remember where, okay, you get some money back if you turn in that dead battery. So what we refer to as a core charge in the automotive industry, and the AutoZone, for example, will send that dead battery to the manufacturer. So the manufacturer will either use some parts from that dead battery, or they'll actually refurbish that dead battery to sell it at a lower cost than a brand new manufactured battery. Okay, so in that case, we are using the flow of products back upstream from the customer all the way to the manufacturer of that battery. Okay, with the flow of information, we have seen that in most cases, the flow of information moves upstream. So the flow of information would move from the customer all the way to the retailer, to the distributor, and ultimately to the manufacturer. And if we use that flow of information to flow upstream, now we have more visibility so that we can be proactive in planning to manufacture our parts, in planning to manufacture our toilet tissue, right? So it's very important where we have this information and products and capital moving both upstream and downstream. Okay. So if we have that, we are going to reduce what we refer to as the bullwhip effect. So the bullwhip effect is essentially where you have peaks and valleys of demand. So if we use a perfect scenario, say let's go back to pre-COVID. And if we are able to share our consumer information from the point of sale data at Walmart, and we're able to send that information to our distribution centers, the distribution centers then send that information to Procter & Gamble. Now Procter & Gamble is able to be proactive in planning how much toilet paper Walmart's going to need, right? Now we currently have something that we refer to as a supply chain disruption, where this bull effect essentially can't be avoided because it was an unknown, okay, within from a supply chain perspective. But let's just think perfect scenario. If all things considered, if we have a level demand, level usage of products, right? We're able to look at that information, use that flow of information, use that information and flow it upstream to our suppliers so that we can be proactive. And if we're proactive, now the supplier is able to cut costs. Now the manufacturers are able to cut costs. Now the distributors can have lower inventory levels. Now, what does that mean? That means that they have lower costs. And in some cases, organizations will pass those costs on to the customer. Okay, so if we increase the information, if we increase the collaboration and visibility of our demand of our products, then it's a win-win for every single person, every single node, every single component within an organization's supply chain. So we're going to expand on this as we progress in the course, but that is a high-level overview of the components of a organization's supply chain and their operation.